Hello students, we'll start with the magnetic properties of the d block elements. So when a magnetic field is applied to substances, mainly two types of magnetic behavior are observed: diamagnetism and paramagnetism. Diamagnetic substances are usually repelled by the applied field, while the paramagnetic substances are attracted. Substances which are attracted very strongly are called as ferromagnetic substances. In fact, ferromagnetism is an extreme form of paramagnetism. Many of the transition metal ions are paramagnetic due to the presence of unpaired electrons in the outermost shell. So paramagnetism arises from the presence of unpaired electrons, each such electron having a magnetic moment associated with its spin angular momentum and orbital angular momentum. For the compounds of the first series of transition metals, the contribution of the orbital angular momentum is effectively quenched and hence is of no significance. The magnetic moment is determined by the number of unpaired electrons and is calculated by spin-only formula, that is mu equals to root over n into n plus 2, where n is the number of unpaired electrons and mu is the magnetic moment in units of Bohr magneton. A single unpaired electron has a magnetic moment of 1.73 Bohr magneton respectively. And the magnetic moment increases with the increasing number of unpaired electrons. Thus, the observed magnetic moment gives a useful indication about the number of unpaired electrons present in the atom. And the magnetic moment is calculated from the spin-only formula. And you can see for scandium in +3 state, there are 0 unpaired electron. It is having an electronic configuration of 3d0, and it is having 0 unpaired electrons. So magnetic moment is 0. Titanium in +3 state is having 1 unpaired electron, and it is having a magnetic moment of 1.73 calculated magnetic moment. Similarly, titanium in +2 state, 3d2, 2 unpaired electrons, 2.84. Vanadium in +3 state, 3 unpaired electrons, 3.87. Chromium in +2 state, 4.90, 4 unpaired electrons. Manganese in +2 state, 5 unpaired electrons, and it is having the highest magnetic moment of 5.92 Bohr magneton respectively. Iron in +2 state is having 4 unpaired electrons, and its magnetic moment on calculation using spin-only formula gives 4.90. CO in +2 state is having 3 unpaired electrons in its outermost shell, and its calculated magnetic moment comes out to be 3.87. Nickel in +2 state is having 2 unpaired electrons, and its calculated magnetic moment is 2.84 Bohr magneton. Copper in +2 state is having only 1 unpaired electron in its outermost shell, and it gives a magnetic moment of 1.73 respectively. And zinc in +2 state, there is no unpaired electron present. It is having an electronic configuration of 3d10 respectively. So its magnetic moment on putting in the formula of spin only, we get 0. So look at the question here. The question is, calculate the magnetic moment of a divalent ion in aqueous solution if its atomic number is 25. So it's a divalent ion, means there the element is present in its ionic state +2 state, having the charge M in +2 state. And its atomic number Z is 25. So when you put in the spin only formula there, you get the value mu equals to root over n into n plus 2. You should get the value of n there as 5, and you should get the value of mu, that is magnetic moment, as root over 5 into 5 plus 2, that is root 35, is 5.92 respectively. I'll show you here in the board how to calculate the magnetic moment of using spin only formula. So see here, mu equals to root over n into n plus 2. So you need to calculate the value of n there, m in plus 2 state, and its atomic number is 25. Okay, so when you write the electronic configuration of this, it comes out to be 3d5 4s2. So since it is present in m in plus 2 state, you will remove 2 electrons from its outermost shell. That is, you will remove 2 electrons from here, and it gives the configuration of 3d5 4s0. Okay, 4s0. And the value of n here is 5. So on putting this formula, you can calculate the value of mu as root over 5 into 5 plus 2. That is 7 into 5 is root 35. And its value is 5.92 Bohr magneton respectively. So this is how you will calculate. The next one is calculate the spin only magnetic moment, that is the value of mu for a divalent ion whose atomic number is 27. So 27, if I take, its configuration comes out to be 3d7 4s2. What is this configuration? 3d7 4s2. Okay. So if you remove 2 electrons from the outermost shell, it becomes 3d7 4s0. And the value of n, here d is having 5 orbitals with it. When you draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, so when you draw 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the total number of unpaired electrons that are present, count 1, 2, 3. So 3 unpaired electrons are present. The value of n here is 3. 3. So put in the formula, mu equals to root over n into n plus 2, and put the value of n there. It is 3 into 3 plus 2. That is root over 15. And this value comes out to be 3.87 Bohr magneton, almost 3.9. So this is how you will calculate. The question comes in your exam that calculate the magnetic moment of a divalent ion whose atomic number will be given. Here it's 25. The next question I'm showing you, it is 27, and I have solved. Calculate the spin only magnetic moment of m in plus 2 state whose z is given here as 27. So its value comes out to be root over 15, and it's 3.87 Bohr magneton. Then formation of colored ions. So when an electron from a lower energy d orbital is excited to a higher energy d orbital, the energy of excitation corresponds to the frequency of light absorbed, and this frequency generally lies in the visible region. The color observed corresponds to the complementary color of the light absorbed, and the frequency of the light absorbed is determined by the nature of the ligand. So in aqueous solution, where water molecules are the ligands, the colors of the ions observed we'll see in the table. A few colored solutions of D block elements are illustrated in this figure. You can see colors of some of the transition metal ions in aqueous solutions. This is vanadium, manganese. Manganese is pink in color. Cobalt, nickel is green in color, copper it is blue in color there. Iron is yellow in color. So this is one reason, and the second reason is due to the presence of unpaired electrons in the outermost shell. So here you see the colors of some of the first row transition metal ions, 3d0 and 3d10. Their color will be colorless. They will have no color. 3d1, titanium in +3 state, purple in color. Vanadium in +4 state, blue in color. Vanadium in +3 state, green in color. Vanadium in +2 state, violet in color. Chromium in +3 state, violet in color. Manganese in +3 state is also violet in color. Chromium in +2 state, blue. Manganese +2 state, pink. Iron +3 state, yellow. Iron in +2 state, green. Cobalt +3, cobalt +2, blue, pink. Nickel in +2 state, green. Copper in +2 state, blue. And Zn in +2 state is colorless. Then formation of complex compounds. Complex compounds are those in which the metal ions bind a number of anions or neutral molecules, giving complex species with characteristic properties. A few examples are FeCN6 3-, FeCN6+, CuNH3 2+, PtCl4 2-, etc. You will read about this complex compounds in the next chapter, that is coordination compounds. The transition metals, they form a large number of complex compounds, and this is due to comparatively smaller sizes of metal ions, their high ionic charges, and the availability of d orbitals for bond formation there. So due to which they form large number of complex compounds. The question comes in your exam, why do transition metals form a large number of complex compounds? So you will write these reasons. Then they exhibit catalytic properties. Most of the transition elements, they are known for their catalytic activity there. So this activity is ascribed to their ability to adopt multiple oxidation states and to form complexes. Vanadium 5 oxide in contact process. Finely divided iron is used in Haber's process, and nickel in catalytic hydrogenation. These are some of the examples which show that they act as catalysts. So the function of catalyst is, it takes part in a chemical reaction and remains unchanged at the end of the reaction there. It increases or decreases the rate of the chemical reaction there. The transition metal ions can change their oxidation states. They become more effective as catalysts. Example, iron in +3 state catalyzes the reaction between iodide and persulfate ions. 2I- plus S2O8 2- gives I2 plus 2SO4 2-. An explanation of this catalytic action can be given as iron in +3 state on treatment with iodide ion goes to iron in +2 state plus I2. Iron in +2 state reacts with thiosulfate ion S2O8 2- to give 2Fe3 plus 2SO4 2-. Thus, the transition metals and the compounds are known for their catalytic activity. Then we come to the formation of interstitial compounds. Interstitial compounds are those which are formed when small atoms like hydrogen, carbon, or nitrogen, they are trapped inside the crystal lattices of metals. And they are usually non-stoichiometric and are neither typically ionic nor covalent. For example, TiC, Mn4n, Fe3H, etc. The principal physical and chemical characteristics of these compounds are as follows. First feature is characteristic feature. They have high melting points, higher than those of pure metals. They are very hard. Some borides approach diamond in their hardness. They retain metallic conductivity and they are chemically inert. Then alloy formation. And alloy, as you know, it is a blend of metals prepared by mixing the components. So alloys may be homogeneous solid solutions in which the atoms of metal are distributed randomly among the atoms of the other. Such alloys are formed by atoms with metallic radii that are within about % of each other. Because of similar radii and other characteristics of transition metals, alloys are readily formed by these metals. The alloys that are so formed are hard and have often high melting points. The best known are ferrous alloys, chromium, vanadium, tungsten, molybdenum, manganese, used for the production of a variety of steels and stainless steel. Alloys of transition metals with non-transition metals such as brass, copper zinc, bronze, copper tin, they are also of considerable industrial importance. So D block elements, they can also form alloys there. Look at the question. The question is, what is meant by disproportionation of an oxidation state? Give an example. So as I said, disproportionation reactions are those reactions in which one of the element which is present in a particular oxidation state gets oxidized as well as reduced. That is, it undergoes self-oxidation and self-reduction process there. So when a particular oxidation state becomes less stable related to the other oxidation states, one lower and the other higher, it is said to undergo disproportionation reaction. An example of this disproportionation reaction we can take for manganese. Here MnO4 2 minus. Here manganese is present in +6 state. On treatment with H plus gives MnO4 minus, manganese goes to +7 state. From 6 + 6 it goes to +7 state, and from +6 it gets reduced to MnO2, that is it goes to +4 state, plus 2H2O. So the same element which is present in a particular oxidation state, it undergoes oxidation and also it undergoes reduction. Such reactions are called as disproportionation reactions there. Look at the question. Question is, explain why Cu plus ion is not stable in aqueous solution. So Cu in +2 state is much more stable in comparison to Cu in plus state, because although second ionization enthalpy of copper is large, but hydration enthalpy for Cu in +2 is much more negative than that for Cu in plus state, and hence it is more that compensates for the second ionization enthalpy of copper. Therefore, copper 1 compounds are unstable in aqueous solution and they undergo disproportionation reaction. So see the reaction to Cu in plus state goes to Cu in +2 state plus Cu. It undergoes disproportionation reaction. So thank you, children. In the next class, we'll see the lanthanoids and the actinoids, that is, we'll study about the F block elements in detail. Have a nice day, children.